If you remember, been a few weeks, it had taken the angel 3 weeks to fight through demonic opposition to reach Daniel. Daniel had persisted day after day for 3 weeks in praying. We saw that a real supernatural battle is taking place in the spiritual realm. Things we don't see directly. Yet we see the effects of these battles in the earthly realm around us. Some people might ask, isn't God all-powerful? If he's omnipotent, all-powerful, why doesn't he just terminate the demonic opposition? One day he'll do just that. But right now, even the demons are serving a purpose. That might surprise some of you. As they oppose God, we learn the need for persistence in prayer and the need to stand against evil. We can learn many lessons in the struggle, preparing us for eternity. An elite athlete doesn't just run onto the field on game day. They've spent many hours, many weeks, many years in tough training to be prepared for that one day of performance, prepared for that great day. The coming Olympics, they're prepared. So it is now with us. This is our time of testing. This is our time of training. We're toiling now for the King, preparing for eternity. How's your toiling going? How's your preparation going? Some good days, some bad days. Keep toiling. Keep pressing through. There are 135 specific prophecies given to Daniel by the angel in this 11th chapter. And don't worry, we're not going to go through each of the 135. We looked at verse 4 in our last study, or the first 4 verses in our last study. In verses 5 through 20, the vision focuses on the 2 divisions of Greece on screen that constantly fought over the promised land. The land of Israel sat between their centres of power. The kings of the north on screen in salmon are the Seleucid dynasty, a fragment of the Grecian Empire. The kings of the south in green, northern Egypt, are the Ptolemaic dynasty, another division of Alexander's empire. The Greek Seleucid and Ptolemaic dynasties fought for about 150 years in fierce battles between them. Whichever was in ascendancy held the land of Israel as a buffer territory, a buffer zone. Israel was just that buffer in the middle. You can imagine 2 children fighting over a teddy bear, ripping the arms and legs and head off the teddy bear. The Seleucid and Ptolemaic dynasties were the childlike kingdoms, and Israel was the teddy bear, getting its arms and legs ripped off. To give a short summary of Daniel chapter 11, we have 5 significant kings predicted amongst numerous other rulers. And these 5 all have names starting with A. Daniel's A list. Verse 2 introduces Ahasuerus, also known as Xerxes, more famously, Xerxes. He was the 4th Persian ruler, called far richer than them all in this prophecy. We looked at him in our last study. He's the fellow that fought against Leonidas, the 300, the movie. That's this fella. In verse 3, we see a mighty king, a mighty Grecian king, Alexander the Great, and we've looked at him in several of our studies in Daniel. Verse 10 predicts a fellow called Antiochus III, or Antiochus the Great. I wonder if he gave himself that title. Verse 21 predicts the coming of a vile person, Antiochus Epiphanes, or Antiochus the Fourth. In verse 36, we see the willful king, who is the Antichrist. There's Daniel's A list: Ahasuerus, Alexander, Antiochus III, Antiochus IV, and Antichrist. Daniel 11, 5 through 20 gives precise predictions that disturbs the Bible critic. How did Daniel know this history before it happened? He gives a history lesson, all of these men, before they came to power. Incredible. You can understand, if you don't believe in God, you can understand why people don't believe Daniel gave this prophecy. How could he possibly have predicted all of those rulers? But he did. We're going to start our study today at verse 21. We'll concentrate today on a vile person, a king of the north, a Greek ruler of the Seleucid dynasty, the fourth notable A from our previous slide, Antiochus the Fourth, or Antiochus Epiphanes. This is the angel speaking to Daniel. And in his place shall arise a vile person. What a description. The Bible's calling him a vile person, and that's exactly what he was. To whom they will not give the honour of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue. This vile person is Antiochus IV, also known as Antiochus, and that name means anti-support. I don't need any support. Why would I? Because his second name, which he gave himself, is Epiphanes, God manifest. I don't need any support, I'm God. Though his enemies called him not Epiphanes, but Epimanes. That was his nickname amongst the people, which means the maniac, the madman. Apart from the possible murder of his brother, we don't know that for sure, but he probably killed his brother. But apart from that, Antiochus came to power by intrigue, peaceably, with subtlety, negotiations. He used smooth promises. He flattered the leaders of Pergamus and Syria. He sent ambassadors to Rome to court favour. Antiochus Epiphanes was like the Antichrist, who will rise to power as a lying peacemaker in that final 7 years before the return of Christ. Comes as a peacemaker, this slippery, lying, deceiving, manipulating man. As Antiochus was, so will Antichrist be. We need leaders today, both in our churches, right across the world, and in our communities, who are people of their word. This fella, Antiochus, look at him on screen. You can sort of tell there's something shifty about this fella. We need people of integrity and people of honour, the opposite to Antiochus. But sadly, many congregations prefer men who are all front and no substance. Many of them produce vomit-inducing fad topic homilies filled with pop psychology. I don't know how much of the online preachers you might have listened to, but you've got to be careful. Nothing but garbage, B-grade pop psychology, a lot of it, not teaching the Bible. It's very sad. Worldwide church congregations have been subjected to very low teaching standards. You've got to have a positive message for everyone to take home. Don't talk about sin, don't talk about judgment, don't talk about things that might make people uncomfortable. It seems to be the way. And the more positive your message, the bigger your churches, the more money you get in the coffers. Sadly, many saints today wouldn't have the discernment to mark and avoid false teachers and false prophets and false doctrine. It's the same in our secular society. You can't vote in a big and powerful politician to run the country unless they're fast-talking, good-looking, flashy, all show and no go. Now, when I gave this sermon online, I went into a bit of politics, but I won't do that here because I might offend. I don't know what all your politics are, but I could easily offend people. But let me tell you, if your hope is in the right side of politics, the Conservatives, you're going to be disappointed. If your hope is in the left side of politics, let me tell you, you're going to be disappointed. Our society prefers these flashy things of no substance. I'll give you one example, just one tiny example. And I'm sorry if this offends anyone, but Keir Starmer. I mean, how did the Brits elect that man? Just empty, nothing. He's no show and no go. I heard someone describe him as a man with a personality of a fax machine. And I'm sorry if you like Keir Starmer, but I could have had a go at plenty of people in the Conservative side as well. But this is what the world seems to want, these empty people, making promises they never keep. As Christians, we're to be people of integrity and principle. We make a promise, we keep it. We make a commitment, we attend. It doesn't matter if a better opportunity comes up. We don't cancel that thing we've agreed to go to because a better opportunity comes along, because we're people of God. We're people of integrity. Antiochus Epiphanes, this guy on screen, he'd do anything, he'd say anything as long as you give him power. We can't be people like that. If there's a promotion at work coming up, you have standards. Don't cross any line to get that job. Be godly people. Be people of God. Verse 22, with the force of a flood, they shall be swept away from before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. As he pretended to be friendly with the south, he was plotting the conquests of Egypt. His invasion of Egypt failed. Antiochus Epiphanes' plotting came to nothing. The reference to the Prince of the Covenant is difficult to interpret with certainty. Matthew Henry, the great commentator, has it that this is a reference to Antiochus' nephew, who was the rightful heir to the Seleucid dynasty, and with whom Antiochus pretended to be in covenant. I'll rule until the young boy is old enough to take over. That was the deal he went with. Do you think the boy ever got to rule? But I lean towards this Prince of the Covenant to be broken being the high priest, Onias III, who Antiochus removed from office and replaced with wicked high priest Jason. It's not very important, the specifics of it. One day we'll know for certain. At the moment, who is this Prince of the Covenant? Not 100% sure. Verse 23, and after the league is made with him, he shall act deceitfully. What a surprise. For he shall come up and be strong with a small number of people. Satan is the father of lies, and all who follow Satan follow in the lying ways of Satan. This is one of many reasons why followers of Jesus should be people of our word. We must be people of integrity. We need to be seen as servants of light, dealing only in truth, in order that we can contrast the deceitfulness of the enemy. We're in light, they're in darkness. All your friends, all your non-Christian friends, they're watching you. They're listening to you. They're seeing how you behave. How many people have been pulled into line by their non-Christian friends? You're supposed to be a Christian. The way we live is a witness. It's not just the words we speak, the way we live. The integrity with which we live is very important. Another important thing about truth, I only tell the truth. People that say such things. Very important thing to remember about truth, don't use truth as a weapon. Truth should be used in love. I've seen Christians use truth like a club to batter people over the head with. That's not how we're to use truth. Verse 24, he shall enter peaceably, even into the richest places of the province. And he shall do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He shall disperse among them the plunder, spoil and riches, and he shall devise his plans against the strongholds, but only for a time. Good old Kenneth Copeland on screen there. Be careful of those who flatter and seem too good to be true. They almost always are. Antiochus could try all he might to pretend to be friendly, generous and giving. But this man was an egomaniac. Everything he ever did was calculated for his own personal gain. If he did something nice, there was a reason. It benefited him. His plotting and scheming came to nothing. And when I see many of the world's televangelists today, I see largely men who are egomaniacs. Not all of them, but mostly egomaniacs. They're desperate for fame, power. They want the big crowds filling the stadiums, coming to see them. But guess what? It seems like almost all of them are desperate to get their hands on your money. Don't support them. Find godly things to support. Support your local church. Support here. Support things that you know are good. Verse 25. He shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall devise plans against him. The king of the south wasn't fooled by Antiochus Epiphanes' kind words and pretense of friendship. The king of the south, what we'd call northern Egypt, was well prepared to defend against Antiochus, and he succeeded with the help of Rome in fending off the north. It's a pity some of our modern Western leaders don't study history close enough. They're more worried about tomorrow's news headline or the next poll to be released. I personally think a country that is not well prepared to defend themselves often will have no one to blame but themselves when a more powerful enemy attacks them. There are plenty of political groups and parties that would have nations drastically reduce funding on the defence of their countries. And I'm all for that. I can't wait for the millennium. Won't need to waste any money on fighter jets and tanks and warships in the millennium. But today we live in a dangerous world. They'd rather divert military spending to increase foreign aid, fighting climate change, promoting gender equality and various virtue signalling social causes. Good luck to them. Verse 26. Yes, those who eat of the portion of his delicacy shall destroy him. His army shall be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. The ironic truth for Antiochus was that after all his plotting and scheming and planning and lying, After his failed attempted conquest of Egypt, his northern kingdom was nothing but a lesser Grecian dynasty under the dominion of Rome. His quest for power, for authority, only diminished his realm considerably. And this was these two kingdoms. For 150 years, they smashed each other. For 150 years, the North, the Seleucid and the Ptolemaic dynasties, they just continued to kill each other and diminish their own powers. And Rome grew steadily stronger in the West. The specific prophecy, those who eat the portion of his delicacies shall destroy him, was fulfilled in the treachery against Antiochus by his own counsellors. His own counsellors turned against him. This guy's no good. Verse 27. Both these kings' hearts shall be bent on evil, and they shall speak lies at the same table. You can picture them, these two kings. Smiles on their faces. Peace, peace, peace. Plotting war, death and destruction. They're at the same table. But it shall not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. While returning to his land with great riches, his heart shall be moved against the holy covenant. So he shall do damage and return to his own land. So he lost the war. He was attempting to take the southern kingdom. He lost the war, but he took great plunders back. Now, both these kings of the south and north were evil men. They spoke lies to each other, smiling at each other's faces, pretending to be friends. But both would ultimately face destruction at the appointed time. Both of their plotting and scheming came to nothing. And that's all plotting and scheming, carnal plotting and scheming, ultimately ever amounts to. Nothing. Antiochus returned to the north with plunder, but the battle was lost. And he vented his anger against Jerusalem. He lost the battle, so someone's got to pay. Jerusalem copped it. He vented his anger against the temple, the Holy Covenant, on his way back home to the north. And you can see that image I spoke about before, the teddy bear getting ripped apart. He lost the battle, so he slapped Israel around when he went back home on the way home. Verse 29, at the appointed time he shall return and go toward the south, but it shall not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Cyprus shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return in rage against the Holy Covenant and do damage. Antiochus, it seems, was not a man who learned his lessons. Many years later, he again strove south to conquer Egypt. But this time, Roman ships from Cyprus intervened and thwarted his plans. Really humbled him. The historical accounts, when you read them, he was tremendously humbled. And again, Antiochus vented his anger against Israel and Jerusalem on his return home, committing vile acts. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the Holy Covenant. And forces shall be mustered by him, and they shall defile the sanctuary fortress. Then they shall take away the daily sacrifices and place there the abomination of desolation. The Jews who abandoned Yahweh, Antiochus rewarded. You abandon your God, the God who brought you out of Egypt, you'll be rewarded. Greek paganism plagued Israel at this time. Antiochus desecrated the temple. He took a pig, or at least one pig, sacrificed that pig in the Holy of Holies. We all know what Jews think of pigs. He splattered the blood all round the temple. And then he forced the Levite priests to eat the pig. He set up a statue of Zeus where the Ark of the Covenant sat. in the Holy of Holies. I think I mentioned this a couple of messages ago. He thought he was Zeus. This lunatic thought he was the living embodiment of Zeus. So he set up a statue of himself in the Holy of Holies. The setting up of that statue in the temple is described here as the abomination of desolation. Now, some Christians misunderstand the abomination of desolation event. They believe it to be fulfilled prophecy. Doesn't that say that? That is the abomination of desolation? Antiochus did commit the abomination that caused desolation. He caused the sacrificial system to be ceased. That's what desolation means, a ceasing. An abomination, the statue, ceased the sacrifices, desolated the sacrifices. But he did this merely as the forerunner, the type, the model for people to watch out for. The terrible acts of the Antichrist are still to play out. Jesus, 2 centuries after Antiochus, Jesus warned his disciples. The abomination of desolation is unfulfilled prophecy. Jesus told his disciples, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel, what are they to do if they're in Judea? Flee. So Jesus is saying this is not fulfilled. Antiochus did it, that's what they're to watch out for. And I've heard Gentile Christians, preachers and experts talking about this event, and they've come into all sorts of crazy metaphysical spiritualizations of what this actually means. It's very simple. Jesus didn't need to describe it or explain it to any of the Jews, or he was actually just talking to 4 Jews at that point. He didn't have to explain it to them. They knew exactly what this was. Every year, the Jews celebrate the recovery from that desolation. Every year, the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah, every year. So they know what this was. Us Gentiles, we don't celebrate the Festival of Light, and these stories fade into the distance. The abomination of desolation is a statue set up in the Holy of Holies that stops, desolates the sacrifices. That's what it is. There's nothing mysterious about that. And Antichrist is coming to set up his image. The Bible tells it. The New Testament tells us that's what's going to happen. He's going to force everyone to take his mark. You take my mark or you won't be able to buy or sell. And after the abomination of desolation is set up, Jesus warned the greatest tribulation in human history will unfold. Just read the book of Revelation. You'll see it. Verse 32. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he shall corrupt with flattery. But the people who know their God shall be strong and carry out great exploits. And those are the people who understand shall instruct many. Yet for many days they shall fall by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Some Jews forsook God and turned to Greek heathenism. But other Jews were faithful and stood strong against the tide of evil. Great exploits were performed by the people who know their God. When you're on God's side, when you know you're on God's side, it instills great confidence. One of the best examples I can think of is Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego standing before that fiery furnace. We won't abandon God. Throw us into the fire. We will not abandon our God. In this time, it was Judas Maccabeus, the hammer. He ultimately led a rebellion against the Greeks, against the Seleucid rulers, and won a mighty victory. But many Jews died in their wars of freedom. Antiochus killed about 80,000 Jews at that time. He imprisoned 40,000 Jews. and he sold 40,000 people into slavery, all whilst emptying the temple treasuries. This was a time of great suffering for the Jews. And we think back to Daniel. He had hoped. He was in exile. He had hoped that Cyrus's decree would allow the Jews independence and self-ruling, allow their nation to rise once again and be unmolested. But this new vision from the angel laid out centuries of the Jews being trampled, oppressed and enslaved. A sense of sadness, I think, might have washed over Daniel at this point. And it's at this point that we're going to finish our study, and in 2 weeks' time we're going to look at the fifth notable A from this chapter. A ruler we know as Antichrist. So we're really going to focus in on him and his activities as recorded in this 11th chapter. So until then, I pray that God will richly bless you all.